You won't believe what happened the moment Karen forced the school bus to stop, because everything changed in seconds suddenly. Children froze in silence as tires screeched loudly, while confused drivers watched the shocking scene unfold right before them completely. No one expected a stranger to step forward shouting orders, claiming authority, and threatening to call the police on everyone. Parents later said something felt wrong immediately, like she knew the route, the driver, and every child's routine already before. The driver tried remaining calm, asking politely why she stopped them, but Karen kept pointing accusing fingers and raising voice. Children whispered to each other nervously, sensing tension building quickly, while one quiet student noticed someone unusual sitting behind Karen. He wore dark glasses and kept his head down, pretending to be a parent, yet none recognized him at all. Karen suddenly made a phone call, speaking urgently, describing the driver as dangerous, claiming the bus was breaking safety laws. The driver explained everything calmly, saying routes were approved, children were safe, and nothing illegal was happening at that moment. Still, Karen refused to listen, pacing around angrily, while the strange man stayed silent, watching every movement carefully from nearby. Some children started recording quietly, holding their phones low, capturing everything unfolding, unsure whether they were witnessing danger or drama. Minutes later, sirens echoed down the street, and suddenly everyone realized this was no longer just a misunderstanding or argument. Police cars approached slowly, lights flashing, as Karen stepped forward confidently, as if she had been waiting for this moment. The mysterious man finally moved, adjusting his jacket and glancing toward Karen, sharing a look that made one student uneasy. That silent exchange raised questions, because it seemed they already knew each other, like partners planning something bigger than imagined. Children began realizing this was more than a complaint, more than fear, something hidden was slowly revealing itself before eyes. The driver sensed danger growing, gripping the wheel tightly, wondering why this situation felt staged rather than a simple conflict. One brave child whispered to another, saying he saw that man earlier waiting near the stop long before Karen arrived. The thought sent chills across the bus, because if he was already there, then this moment might have been planned. Karen kept arguing loudly, demanding the driver be arrested immediately, while police officers stepped closer, listening carefully to every word. Yet no one noticed the man slowly slipping toward the back door, scanning the children, as if searching for someone. That moment would later become important, because hidden details often reveal truth long after chaos fades and silence returns again. But the biggest question remained unanswered: who was that silent accomplice sitting beside Karen, and what was his true purpose? Police officers stepped onto the bus slowly, their presence bringing a strange silence that filled every corner with nervous tension. Karen immediately began speaking loudly, repeating her claims, pointing toward the driver as if she had already decided his fate. The driver remained calm, explaining his route, showing documents, and answering every question without hesitation or fear at all. Meanwhile, the mysterious man stood near the back, watching everything closely, his eyes moving from child to child without expression. One officer noticed him immediately and asked politely who he was and why he was standing there so quietly alone. The man paused briefly, then answered calmly, saying he was just a concerned parent checking on his child this morning. But something felt strange about his voice, like he was choosing words carefully, making sure nothing sounded suspicious or uncertain. Children whispered again, remembering none of them had ever seen him before, not at school, not at the bus stop. Karen interrupted suddenly, trying to pull attention back to herself, insisting the driver was dangerous and needed immediate punishment. The officer listened patiently, asking simple questions, but Karen grew louder each time, determined to control the entire situation. As tension built, one child quietly held up a phone, showing another officer the video recorded from moments earlier outside. The footage showed Karen stepping in front of the bus suddenly, while the mysterious man appeared from behind seconds before everything started. That small detail changed the mood instantly, because it showed they might have arrived together, even if they pretended otherwise. The officer's expression shifted slightly, and he turned his attention toward the quiet man standing near the back exit door. He asked again if the man's child was on board, requesting a name, a grade, and where the child was sitting. The man hesitated this time, glancing toward Karen for just a second before answering with a name no one recognized. Students looked at each other again, shaking their heads silently, because no one on that bus had that name at all. The officer noticed the silence spreading through the bus, sensing something important hidden beneath this confusing and growing story. Karen quickly tried speaking again, trying to change the focus, saying the children looked scared because of the reckless driver. But the driver calmly explained he stopped only because Karen blocked the road, leaving him no choice but to brake. Another officer checked the bus cameras quietly, reviewing earlier footage to understand what truly happened before they even arrived. Moments later, he called the first officer aside, whispering something serious enough to change the tone of the entire scene. Karen's confidence started fading slightly, while the mysterious man stepped closer to the door, clearly feeling pressure building fast. One child noticed him slowly reaching toward the handle, as if preparing to leave before more questions could expose something hidden. At that exact moment, the officer turned back sharply, calling out to him, asking him to stay where he was standing. The bus fell silent again, and everyone realized the truth was slowly coming closer, piece by piece, right before them. The officer's voice grew firmer as he asked the man to step away from the door and remain where he was. The sudden change in tone made everyone understand something serious was unfolding. Even Karen looked confused for a moment, as if she hadn't expected the focus to shift away from her. The man slowly removed his hand from the door handle and nodded, trying to appear calm. But a few students noticed his fingers were shaking slightly. One of the officers walked toward him, asking for identification in a steady, professional voice that filled the quiet bus. Karen quickly stepped forward again, trying to take control of the moment. She spoke loudly, saying the officers should be checking the driver instead, repeating her earlier accusations. But this time, her voice didn't carry the same confidence it had before. Something had changed. The officer reviewing the bus camera footage stepped back onto the bus and spoke quietly to his partner. He explained that the recording clearly showed Karen and the man standing together near the stop several minutes before the bus even arrived. They appeared to be waiting, watching, and talking. The students felt a strange chill hearing that. It meant the stop wasn't random. It wasn't sudden. It looked planned. The driver listened carefully, his eyes narrowing slightly as the realization settled in. He had driven this route for years. He knew the parents. He knew the children. And he was certain he had never seen either of them before that day. The officer turned back to the man and asked again for the name of his child. This time, the man couldn't answer quickly. He paused too long. The silence stretched across the bus, making everything feel heavier. A child near the front whispered that the man had been sitting at the bus stop long before pickup time. Another student quietly said they saw him watching the children the previous day too. Their small voices carried more weight than anyone expected. Karen's expression shifted again, and for the first time, she looked nervous. The officer finally spoke clearly, telling the man they needed to confirm his identity. He asked him to step off the bus. Karen started to protest, saying this was all a misunderstanding, but the officers didn't respond to her this time. As the man stepped down slowly, he avoided looking at Karen. That small moment made everything feel even more suspicious. It was as if something unspoken had just broken between them. And suddenly, everyone realized this wasn't just about stopping a bus anymore. The moment the man stepped off the bus, the air inside felt different, as if pressure had suddenly lifted slightly. Still, no one spoke. Every child watched through the windows as the officers guided him a few steps away to ask more questions. Karen remained near the front, arms folded tightly. The driver stayed seated, hands resting on the wheel, trying to stay calm for the children. He could feel their fear, their confusion, and he knew they were looking to him for reassurance. Quietly, he told them everything was going to be all right, his voice steady and warm. Outside, one officer began checking the man's identification while another continued speaking to Karen. She kept repeating the same story, insisting she was only trying to protect the children. But now her voice sounded forced, as if she was struggling to keep control. Through the window, a few students noticed the officer's expression change while reading the ID card. He looked up at the man, then down again, as if something didn't match. The man shifted his weight nervously, glancing toward the bus more than once. Inside, whispers spread from seat to seat. One child said he remembered seeing the same man standing across the street the week before. Another said he had seen Karen speaking to him near a shop 2 days earlier. Each small memory made the situation feel less like a coincidence. The officer by the bus radioed something quietly, his words too low to hear. Moments later, another police car arrived and parked behind the first one. The flashing lights reflected off the bus windows, painting the inside with soft red and blue patterns. Karen noticed the second car and immediately stepped forward again, trying to talk louder, trying to regain attention. She pointed toward the driver once more, repeating her accusations, but this time the officers barely responded. One officer asked her a simple question instead. How did she know the man standing outside? For the first time, Karen hesitated. She answered quickly, saying she didn't know him at all. Just another concerned parent, she claimed. But her eyes shifted toward the window without meaning to. And the officer noticed. Inside the bus, the children felt the tension growing again. The truth was getting closer, piece by piece. The driver could feel it too. Something about this entire situation didn't feel random anymore. Outside, the officer folded the identification card and spoke quietly into his radio. Again. Then he looked directly at Karen. The look on his face said everything. Whatever he had just learned was about to change the entire story. Karen shifted her weight as the officer approached her slowly, holding the identification card carefully in his hand. The confidence she had shown earlier was fading quickly now. She tried to stand tall, but her voice no longer carried the same force when she began explaining herself again. The officer spoke calmly, asking her one simple question again. How did she know the man? Karen shook her head and repeated that she didn't know him at all. Just someone who happened to be nearby, she said. But the officer didn't react. He simply listened, watching her carefully, as if measuring every word she spoke. Inside the bus, the children leaned closer to the windows, trying to see what was happening outside. The driver stayed still, silently hoping this would end soon so he could safely continue the route. Every passing minute made the situation feel heavier. Then the officer turned slightly and said something that changed everything. He explained that the identification card the man handed over didn't seem real. The name on it didn't match any records nearby, and the address listed was not valid. That small detail made the entire scene feel even more serious. Karen blinked quickly, clearly caught off guard by that information. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then stopped. For a second, she looked toward the man standing beside the second officer, as if expecting him to say something. But the man stayed silent. The officer then mentioned something else. The bus camera footage showed Karen and the man talking together long before the bus arrived. They had been standing side by side, waiting, watching, planning something, it seemed. Karen immediately tried to explain. She said they were just talking about safety. Just two concerned adults discussing the children's protection. But the officer's expression didn't change. Inside, the children felt the shift clearly now. What started as shouting and confusion had turned into something far more serious. Even the driver realized that this was no longer just about a complaint or misunderstanding. Another officer stepped forward and spoke quietly to the first. He had checked nearby cameras from a nearby store. The footage showed Karen arriving in the same car as the man earlier that morning. Karen's face lost color instantly. She tried to deny it, speaking quickly, but her words didn't come out smoothly anymore. Her story was falling apart piece by piece, right in front of everyone. The man finally looked up, and for the first time, fear showed clearly in his eyes. And everyone realized the truth was very close now. The air outside the bus felt heavier as the officers stepped closer to both Karen and the man, their calm expressions now firm and focused. Whatever had been hidden was slowly surfacing, and even the children inside could sense that the moment of truth was getting closer with every passing second. Karen tried speaking again, her voice quicker now, almost rushed. She repeated that she was only trying to protect the children, only trying to make sure the bus was safe. But the strength behind her words was gone, replaced by something uncertain and unsteady. The officer who had reviewed the nearby store camera footage spoke clearly, explaining that the video showed Karen and the man arriving together, stepping out of the same car, and standing at the stop long before the bus appeared. That detail silenced everything again. Inside, the children looked at one another, their earlier confusion now turning into realization. The driver closed his eyes briefly, taking a slow breath, knowing that something planned had almost put everyone through unnecessary fear and danger. Outside, the man finally spoke, but his voice was low and careful. He said they were only checking if the driver was following safety rules. He said they were concerned citizens. But even as he spoke, he avoided looking directly at Karen. The officer asked him why he had used false identification. The man didn't answer immediately. He looked toward the ground, then toward the bus, then finally toward Karen. That silent exchange lasted only a second, but it told a bigger story than any words. Karen shook her head slightly, as if silently telling him not to say anything. That moment didn't go unnoticed. One of the officers stepped forward and calmly explained that giving false identification and creating a dangerous situation by stopping a school bus could have serious consequences. His voice remained steady, but the message was clear. Karen suddenly tried to step back, her earlier confidence completely gone now. She spoke softly this time, saying she didn't mean for things to go this far. She said she thought something was wrong and acted quickly. But the officer gently reminded her that planning to stop a bus, calling the police with accusations, and bringing someone along with false information was not a simple mistake. Inside, the children sat quietly, realizing they had witnessed something far bigger than a normal morning delay. The driver looked toward them again, offering a small reassuring smile, letting them know everything was under control. Outside, the officers began speaking quietly among themselves, preparing to take the next step. And Karen finally understood that the situation was no longer in her control. The final moments unfolded slowly, as if time itself had paused to let the truth fully settle into place. The flashing police lights reflected across the bus windows, and inside, the children sat quietly, sensing that everything was finally coming to an end after a long, tense morning. Outside, the officers spoke calmly but firmly. The man was asked to step aside once more while they confirmed more details through their radio. This time, he didn't argue. He simply nodded and followed their instructions, his shoulders slightly lowered, as if he already understood what was coming next. Karen stood still, her arms no longer crossed, her voice silent for the first time since everything began. The determination that once filled her words had disappeared. In its place was a quiet realization that things had gone far beyond what she expected. One officer explained gently but clearly that stopping a school bus without reason, making false claims, and bringing someone who used false identification had created unnecessary fear for the children and the driver. His tone was not loud, but it carried weight. Inside, the driver looked back at the students and told them softly that everything was okay now. A few children nodded, some still held their phones, capturing the final moments, knowing they had witnessed something they would talk about for a long time. The man was guided toward one of the police cars while officers continued asking questions. Karen tried to speak once more, saying she never meant for things to turn out this way. But the moment had already passed. What was done could not be undone. For the first time, she looked toward the bus, toward the children, and seemed to understand how much fear and confusion the situation had caused. Her expression softened, no longer angry, no longer loud. The officers assured the driver that he could continue his route soon. One of them even thanked him for staying calm and keeping the children safe through everything that had happened. As the bus engine started again, a sense of relief moved through every seat. The tension that had filled the air earlier was finally fading. Conversations slowly returned. Small voices replaced silence. But one question remained in everyone's mind long after the bus pulled away. Why had Karen planned this in the first place?
If you enjoyed the, don't forget to subscribe to Karen Universe, share with your friends and drop your thoughts in the comments.